Hey everyone, my name is Mark Good. I'm the founder of AI Force Training, where we are empowering Salesforce professionals to use GPT-infused tools. I'm here today with Kevin, who has got Sidekick, and I'm so stoked to go through this. We are actually going to demo for the world today, for the first time ever, GPT passing an actual Salesforce admin practice exam. So great to be with you here today, Kevin, for this joint video. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mark. Really appreciate you taking the time to set this up. Really excited to do this. As a quick intro, my name is Kevin Tamura. I'm one of the co-founders of Sidekick. For those of you that aren't familiar, Sidekick is a virtual agent to tackle any of your enterprise application needs. We're starting specifically with Salesforce. So the best way to kind of envision this is think Chat GPT, but specifically for Salesforce in this case. Not having to deal with the data cutoff, training data cutoffs, and potentially difficulties with getting answers around your personalized org. So we get a little bit more into that later. But again, Mark, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll do it. Let's kick it off. So you're going to screen share and do it live. So anybody who wants to sit through this awful, boring video and watch copy and paste as your tool goes through and actually answers the questions for the practice exam, you're going to do that here. And I guess we'll just talk and maybe try to banter, maybe do a little bit of GPT training as we go, since that's the core of what I do as well, just trying to empower everyone. So yeah, feel free to launch it and let's see how it does. I'm stoked to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to jump in here into the Salesforce Ben admin practice exam. And Mark, this is probably more your lane here, but I'm just going to give our Sidekick a prompt. So it's just going to quick prompt, just explaining our task for today, what we'd like to accomplish. Just make sure that we're staying on track. So if you see me typing that in, just for consistency's sake, I'll put that in all the questions, just so we're staying consistent throughout. So let's go ahead and let's look at question 1. Of course, it's the one that we're starting off with, and it's going to get that one wrong. So moving right along. It's funny, Mark, you kind of go through these a few times, and you realize, like, just where these are some of the gotchas, right?
While you do that, I'll just say that for anyone who's new to GPT and is not familiar with maybe the term prompt, or maybe you know about prompting, but you don't understand exactly what's going on here. So this information is going into a generative pre-trained transformer, and that's the GPT. That's the system that's trained on big data behind what's happening. And so you have to give it sort of either personality or sort of you're setting the stage for how it should think and how it should respond and generate responses and answers for you. And so that's why you've got to do that. But aside from that, you're just copying and pasting the questions and letting GPT determine, what's the correct or potentially correct answer to the question. And yeah, we'll see how it performs. There was someone who posted, I wish I had their name in front of me right now so I could shout them out, but someone who posted on LinkedIn going through Chat GPT, and I assume it was the 3.5 turbo version, so there's different versions of GPT, and it didn't pass the test. I think it was like a 53% pass rate. I did some fun prompting. You and I were probably working at the same time, Kevin, where you were doing this, and I was on my end doing some cool prompts to see what we could get 3.5 to actually deliver on with some really improved prompting. But you've got the secret sauce, it seems, that you've been able to get across the finish line. So you mentioned to me that this had passed the exam, the practice exam. And so here we are. We're here to see it live. And so for anyone who doubts or questions the power of GPT, I think, especially in the Salesforce ecosystem, this sort of takes you across the finish line. If you've got a tool that can actually, pass an exams that are meant to be the standard for, whether or not someone can go and administer an org, but GPT can do that. I think this sets the tone for some very serious implications as we go forward and start adopting the technology in different areas of Salesforce. So you're on question 5 now.
Yeah, I'm on 5, and whatever reason it's having issues intaking. Oh, includes relevant provisions and assigns to each super user.
So you're actually having to read through and make sure you select the correct response, or the response that it says is correct, and not accidentally.
Yeah, I could have changed the prompt to make it more explicit around which answer it is, assigning a number to the answer.
Gotcha.
Which one is this? Sorry.
Yeah. Take your time. Do whatever you need to do. We're blazing new trails here. This isn't something that anyone's provided a demo video for before. So you do what you need to do. Yeah. So on question 5, and then after you get done with this prompt, I want to ask you a question about how you feel it's been doing so far in the answers, because I am not paying attention to each question and answer.
Yeah. I don't know what is going on. Oh, here it is. Therefore, the best. Okay, so I think I might have missed this at the top, but
Okay.
What's happening here, it's going through and it's using reasoning to go through all the different options, and then it's going through, okay, this is the best option at the bottom. Rating of permission set that includes the relevant permissions assigned to each super user. So that's 3.
Nice.
So, okay. Sorry, what was your question, Mark?
Oh, just wondering, you're 6 questions in, how well do you think it's performed so far? Just best guess.
Best guess, I think we've missed a couple, but
Okay.
so far so good. I think what you'll find is that opportunity splits, that was a layup. There's going to be some questions that might be better tailored for a model with better reasoning, but for the most part, I think Sidekick does, obviously, in our test, has performed better than your average user. And then, to your point, right, we are passing this test at an above average level. So, I mean, we'll see. Proof is going to be in the pudding. We'll find out pretty soon here.
Well, I sure hope so. This is a one take kind of thing. It either does or it doesn't.
Yep.
Also, I'll say that, GPT-4 was when that model rolled out, OpenAI's big announcements was, look, here are all the different types of standard exams, including the bar exam that is passed. And the way that they train GPT-4 is more of a more geared towards that sort of use case. So, the tool that you've built here, you didn't even build it for passing exams, right? Like that's not the core
It's
function.
not a primary use case at all, right? So it was a little nervy kind of going into that one night that, I think you and I were both testing this. And it was kind of cool. It's very validating to see from a reasoning and a logic standpoint, right? Like a lot of this test is all about reasoning and kind of connecting the dots when it comes to the Salesforce ecosystem.
Yeah.
And, it was really encouraging to see that, it validates that this is able to kind of think like an admin, right? Obviously not replacing an admin, but, something that can really supplement and help out someone.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think as I think forward, and we prepare for GPT Dreamin, which is August 7th through the 11th, that's gptdreamin.com. If you're interested and you want to see more things like this happening there, as we prepare for that, we're really thinking about the future implications of GPT being infused in different tools that we use as Salesforce professionals or as businesses utilizing Salesforce. And, if today, we'll see at the end of this call, right? But if today we have a tool that can pass a Salesforce exam, the question is, when can the actual tool start making decisions for us or assisting in a real active way in decision making for how we manage our org? There's some tools out there that are sort of developing this capability, but I just think that, from our standpoint as Salesforce admins and developers and architects, business administrators, I think we just need to know about this capability. We need to understand the tool. We need to understand how it works. We especially need to understand how to communicate with it, because this will be the future of how we manage our orgs. My opinion, but I'm a little biased.
No, I think those are good points. I think it's incredible that the rate and the speed that technology and AI is progressing, right? In just these 6 months or whatever that's been. So no, Mark, I think these are going to be valuable skills to have and to be familiar with, as kind of the means of which we that we interact with these systems. I think we're really going to be changing.
Yep.
To your point. So.
Yeah, they will. They really will. And it's really, we're just really at the tip of the iceberg at this point, based on what I've seen. And your tool, it's a great example. Based on what I've seen that companies are integrating into their tooling, It's about to explode. And honestly, GPT Dreamin is in early August, but we have something like 60 days. I guess I probably shouldn't date this video by throwing out dates, but there's a lot that's going to happen for the next 60 days. This is the interesting thing in the AI and GPT space, is that so much changes so quickly that what you're doing today and what you're demoing today is going to grow significantly, even just this alone within 60 days. And there's so many other tooling improvements that are happening right now over the next 60 days. So it's actually really hard to nail down for GPT Dreamin what specifically we'll be able to demo and present.
Yeah.
We have a baseline right now, but we're still collecting some more data to make sure we have everything, make sure those developing software get to maybe demo or at least present their latest and greatest when we get to the actual event. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I was reading an article, I think it was an interview with Sam Altman,
yeah,
right, OpenAI, and obviously we're built on OpenAI, and it was really exciting to see some of the things that they have on the roadmap just for 2023, right? Mm-hmm. So on our end, on our team, that's something we're thinking about, where it's like, hey, that comes out next month, right? It completely changes the game in terms of what we thought was possible. So
yeah,
very cool stuff. And sorry, I'm trying to multitask. There's probably some instances where I've entered the wrong answer and trying to do three things at once here, but
somebody will go through this entire video and they will audit it and they will let us know where we messed up.
100%. There's always someone will be there to keep you honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think this is such a big deal. I can't imagine if you're a law firm and someone just announced that GPT-4 passed the bar exam, I can't imagine sort of like the shock that it sends through your neural net up here in your brain of how the implications change the game for law. And then, so we're in the Salesforce ecosystem. So this will be the first announcement, I hope, let's see, that a GPT tool has passed a Salesforce practice exam. And if it does pass, then this will be the first of a series of exams that get passed by GPT. And my vision, I hope someday, is that we get to say that we're using a GPT, a Salesforce certified GPT instance. If not Einstein GPT, then some DIY version ourselves. Or ideally, Einstein GPT will come out and Salesforce will say, yes, Einstein GPT has passed every certification that we own. I think it'd be fantastic.
Yep, the race is on.
Yeah.
I think one thing to note, though, is going back to, I don't know if you've played around with this at all, but it's been interesting on the legal side. It seems like GPT has almost appreciated to a degree. I mean, they say that they haven't changed the underlying models, but you go on the different message boards or whatever, and it sounds like the legal answers it used to give you aren't quite as hardy as they used to be. So
interesting.
It's it's something to note. There was an article that came out about a lawyer in New York who submitted, getting the legal term, but anyway, some sort of documentation, and turns out they had asked GPT to cite the sources and let's go to this case. As you and I know, there's some training data cutoffs, and if you're not too careful, you can run into some issues, right? So that guy is in a load of trouble. So I think it's important to distinguish, right, when you're looking at these tools, what is the information that's available within the tool, and how can you verify where the data is coming from? So
yeah,
I don't think we're immune to some of those challenges, but to hedge that, you'll see here in our answers, not only are we asking GPT or Sidekick, really in this case, to explain our answers, but to provide the context and documents that you can go to here. We won't go to it right now, but you can go there and it'll tell you, you can kind of reference, okay, hey, is this really giving me what I'm asking for, right?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. That was one of the things that drew me into your tool when I first saw it, was the references. Because if you go to ChatGPT, does a terrible job at that. And so especially having references, especially being Salesforce, especially being able to click through and actually read it to do your audit, I think it's fantastic. And I think that bridges the gap that exists right now. It's really challenging to go from not using GPT, not understanding it, to using it and understanding it reliably. And this is one of the reasons why it's so challenging. It's because because it makes things up, or it's a generative tool, so it can make things up. And so because of that, you can't just take the response and run with it. You have to sort of filter it through your own logic and reasoning, or go out and audit it via links like this, or source data that is available to audit it against.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
So what are and you're rolling on this thing, 29.
We're at 30. I'm trying not to keep people too long. How am I doing on time here?
I have no idea.
Laser locked in right now.
People will have to wait for creativity. That's what happens here.
And I think I'm stuck loading here. But one thing that I wanted to call out earlier is it took me, I don't know if you saw, but I was stuck on this question. It provided this really long answer. I didn't really understand where the correct answer was. But looking back at this is kind of a cool example of how these generative AI tools actually have the ability to have sort of a chain of thought reasoning process. So what you're seeing here is this question asked around considerations about data import wizard or data loader. So what it did is it provided the considerations for using each, and by doing that, it was able to deduct what is the correct answer. Which I'm 99.9% sure that was correct, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's really interesting because people talk about GPT not being, people say that others don't understand GPT because GPT doesn't think. It's not a thinking tool. It doesn't actually do any thinking at all. All it's doing is generating text. But I submit to you and to everyone that example that you just went over, that sort of logic reasoning is the same logic reasoning that I would go through if I were answering a question. And so even though that logic and reasoning on the page on the screen there is just generated text, it still exemplifies how a human might think through the problem to solution for it. And so therefore, I have a level of confidence in this tool's ability, even though it's not thinking per se, although I would submit, based on the technology in the background, it is thinking. Take with that what you want. But it's fascinating that it's mimicking, or appears to be mimicking on screen, human logical reasoning. Mm-hmm. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's totally fascinating as well. And I think for people that are interested, there's a lot of really cool papers about when people get, for lack of a better term, they get a number of these agents in a room together, right? Take multiple GPTs and you kind of see what the outcome is, right? And you start to see human behaviors become mimicked, which is, then we start getting really cool. So
talking about agents, and I think that's another level of if we get to the point where we're actually utilizing these agents in the way that they're sort of purported to be able to be used today, which they're not quite yet, that's going to, again, just ripple through the ecosystem and change how we do business. There's this idea for anyone who's like on the forefront or really into what AI is doing or how to harness it. There's this idea of tree of thought where you prompt GPT, and then you use GPT to spit out 3 or 4 different variations of different responses that could be the right response to the prompt. And then, and maybe we'll talk about it in the context of what we're doing here. So imagine you ask the question to GPT, but instead of asking for one answer, one logic of reasoning, one answer, you ask for 4 different sets, 2 sets, so 4 total answers. And then you tell GPT a separate prompt to look at those 4 responses and the original question, and ask which one of these is more likely to be the correct answer. And then you go with that, but you sort of start to build this tree of responses. So you sort of keep the history. And then if at any point down the tree, you decide via some sort of logic that this train of thought didn't work out and you have to go down another path, you still have that tree to go back up and down the other branches and sort of build out this much higher likelihood of getting a good response out of GPT. Why do I say all that? Because that sounds so technical. The reason I say all that is because the state that we have it in today and the way we're using it today is not the state it's going to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years, especially 5 years from now. Tree of thought and other complex reasoning and logic that we apply to this tool is going to just change the way we use it and change the way it functions, and is just going to make it so much more robust than it is today, even though today it's about to pass this practice Salesforce admin exam.
That's right, 2/3 of the way there.
41, here we go.
I can tell you that is the correct answer. That's great. Yeah, Mark, I like what you were saying, and it's really interesting to think about, right? Like where we're at now versus where we could be in the future, and how that could be maybe more outcome based, right? With giving a task or assignment and figuring out, hey, the science behind, or maybe the secret sauce to what is the best way to project that and communicate with these tools. So something I'm really looking forward to. But to your point, it is just not too stable now, but definitely take a look at it if for anyone that hasn't had a chance to play with some of those tools.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so that's what we do at AI Force training, is we take you over that hump, that challenging learning curve. So we set up a free mini course to sort of do what we're doing here, sort of talk through sort of the basics of GPT and how it functions, and really sort of set the scene for how you need to look at it. And that's what I always encourage people to do. And every time I talk with anyone, it's just, hey, if you're not using GPT, any tools, here we've got Sidekick. This is specific to Salesforce. So if you're looking for Salesforce solutions, Sidekick is it. We've got ChatGPT, which is obviously a really popular tool for just generally anything right now. Go play around with it, and you're going to start to find, and these are the stories that I collect right now. We're doing a special on GPT Trailblazers, where we collect these stories where everyone's just finding really unique and cool use cases to plug into their sort of daily workflow and just really save them time or save them mental energy on repeat tasks or tasks where they were going to have to become extremely creative to solution or problem solve. And they're able to actually do it either faster or with less energy using GPT. And so what does that mean? It means that it frees up your time or your mental energy to allocate to something else so that you can just get more done or get more quality work done, or move on to something that you've been interested in, but you just haven't had time to do lately. And so I just always encourage everyone, get in there, play with it, really get to the point where you can understand what happens when you're sending off a request. Where does that response come from? Why is it incorrect? If it is incorrect, how can you change your request to get a better response? And that's what we train on, and that's what we work towards. We just really want to arm everybody with the tools. So Sidekick here, the tools and the knowledge to just really apply this new tech.
Yeah, I think that's great. The things that you're doing, Mark, is really going to allow people to kind of maximize, tools like a Sidekick, and even myself working internally at Salesforce, this is something that I even use before I even have much knowledge of this, right? But it's just such a vast knowledge ecosystem that, having something at the time, GPT and now Sidekick, has really been crucial to be able to sometimes navigate all the waters, right? You could be the most knowledgeable person in the world. And, with the rate of innovation and change, here we go. This is a little semantic thing. It's just hard to keep up with all that. So, kudos to what you're doing to enable people to really maximize these tools. And, I've seen on some of your stories, I think I saw a cool one with a consultant, right? Maybe in the last couple of weeks. And I thought her story was awesome. So.
Yeah. We have some really amazing stories coming out of the members for AI Force training. And again, we're just like sort of at the ground floor. I mean, this is really just scratching the surface. This is really just us going to a GPT tool and saying, hey, can you help me out? Can you be my knowledge base and help either train me or help me execute on a certain deliverable? just scratching the surface. Eventually, and what out of our program, we call them GPT specialists. You actually get a cert, and it just signifies that, you know, you are at the forefront. You are gathering all the knowledge you possibly can around GPT and how to apply it to your org with all the knowledge that we have today. And so we're just really encouraging everyone to just gain that knowledge and go out and tackle GPT, because GPT is, you know, we've got what Einstein GPT was announced. There's the other GPT tools that were announced for the different, for Service Cloud, Tableau GPT. Salesforce is setting the scene. I mean, if you're not getting the message, it's written on the wall. You're walking by every day.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, every time I look at Mark's Twitter feed, right, it's a new GPT or something out there. And like, did I miss this? Is this new? So they're really doing a great job of, you know, trailblazing that, right? No pun intended.
Yeah. No, it's cool. And talking about, you said earlier you mentioned, you know, you may be one of the smartest Salesforce professionals and know how to use, you know, like all the different tools inside of Salesforce, right? But even still, even with all that knowledge, just being able to tap into big data that's trained on, let's call it 80% of that knowledge as well, being able to tap into that and then have it sort of reason for you, kind of like we're doing here, a little bit of reasoning, putting together some different concepts and spit out recommended solutions or brainstorming or a training document you're working on, or, you know, bullet points for a slide PowerPoint presentation that are geared specifically towards directors in the organization. These are all amazing use cases for GPT that didn't exist before. And now, you know, even as the smartest person in Salesforce, you get the opportunity, in my opinion, to sort of offload some of the tasks that maybe you wish you didn't have to do as much onto GPT, which frees you up to do things that you care about even more. I think it's really fantastic. You're on question 50. Was the 6? Awesome. Wow, we're so close.
There, and oh, we got this one wrong. I can talk about this later. Technically, it isn't wrong. It's just not. It's frowned upon now. So.
Oh, did it gave you an answer for Process Builder? Send an email alert.
Yeah, and that's something that's not to go way off the wagon, right? But
yeah.
If you were to ask it a question about flow, it'll do great. Any questions related to flow, it's just if you come down to a question between do you use this or that, it's hard for an underlying model to kind of reconcile that. Yeah, this other one has been, you know, is being retired or is in the process of being retired.
Right.
You know, functionally, it's able to answer questions around both, but that's just a little hiccup we would need to there.
Well, before you get to 60, I'll just mention for anyone who's interested in sort of the behind the scenes, the big data that trains GPT. So because inside of that, you've got all these people talking about how great Process Builder is, and there's so many instances of Process Builder in sort of the internet space where the data was pulled for to train OpenAI's GPT. So it's going to have a heavy weight towards responding with Process Builder. As time goes on and the training material gets updated, it will learn that Process Builder is being phased out or has been phased out, and that Flow is the replacement, and it will get better at responding with Flow answers in general.
You know, it's been funny playing around with too, right? There's been kind of this, it's caused some people a little bit of heartburn moving away from Process Builder, right, to Flow and some of the maybe perceived gaps there. And I found sometimes in just playing around with this that oftentimes I'll tell it like, no, you know, Flow is the right answer. And it'll be like, it'll shoot back that, you know, Flow's a great tool, but we can do this a lot easier in Process Builder. So it is kind of interesting, like, you might be right there, but it's, the admin test isn't going to be good with that. So the powers that be aren't going to be thrilled. So, all right.
Good summary. Moment of truth.
Let's do it.
Let's see what we get.
78. Hey. Wow. Let's go.
Incredible. I mean, if you're watching right now, you just witnessed for the first time publicly live, no questions asked. Like, you just went through every question on this practice exam, and Sidekick using GPT technology just crushed the practice exam. incredible.
That's an awesome result. Happy with that. I think that performed better than I expected. So it's always a nice surprise, right?
So use Sidekick, right? I mean, Sidekick is on your side as I would call at least a knowledgeable enough Salesforce professional to give you results, answers to questions that you'd be looking for around Salesforce administration. I mean, the proof is in the pudding here, and the only time will tell how many other exams that Sidekick and GPT will pass. Incredible.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mark. And I think this is we're really just getting started. And again, we weren't really, this is our primary use case to be a test taker. So obviously it's validating to see. But yeah, I think this has been a great exercise. I appreciate you inviting us on to do this, Mark.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks everybody for joining in. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Bye.